This is why it's so important to just be yourself. All right, so at University of Chicago, I would come into the office. That was when I would have to go into the office as an admissions officer. The secretary would give me some coffee. I would go back to my desk, and there was like a database with new populated, applications every day. And at will throughout my day, I had to get through pretty much as many as I would see logged in for that day. Typically, it would be about maybe 10 to 12 applications per day, depending on how many interviews I had scheduled for the day. So the interviews took priority. And if you didn't have interviews, then you just went and did your application. So that's how that one worked. Now at USC with the remote position, it was for a grad program that wasn't like super, populated. So it just kind of depended from week to week how many applications I would receive in the database. And there's peak season and then there's low season. So during peak season, I would have as many as 25 applications for that week to get through. At low season, maybe as little as 5 or 7. The myth that needs to be debunked about college admissions officers is that we are a monolith. We are not. Just as diverse as you walking out of your door and you see all kinds of people, college admissions officers really represent an array of different people. We have our own personalities, we have our own interests, we come from different cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds. So there's no one version of us that you could ever pinpoint to say, I know exactly what they want and what they're looking for. I guarantee you don't. I think it's really important to keep in mind just how diverse that a college admissions officer can be. I know me personally, if you saw me in my real life and then knew that I was a college admissions officer, you might not think that that's my job because I'm a very fun-loving, outgoing person. So I bring that part of me to my work every day. So I'm connecting to people who I find interest with. If they also like theater, if they say something that sparks my interest, yes, it's going to draw me into their application differently than someone who doesn't. So I think you really need to understand that there's no one perfect, ideal admissions officer, and you're just going to get who you get reading your application. All admissions officers are not the same, and there are different ways to participate in the admissions process as an admissions officer. So for instance, when I was at University of Chicago, that was about 10 years ago, I was actually a grad student at the time. I was one that was local and on campus, and I would be there to interview for undergraduate applications to the university. I was not someone who went off and spoke to students and tried to recruit. I was just there to be on call for any interviews and to just kind of sit at the computer every day and literally just go through applications, reading essays, giving my notes, looking at the resume, looking at those things, passing those notes on to an admissions committee. So that's one role of an admissions officer. Now, last year, when I was in a graduate program, I was an application reader. So I was just getting sent application after application every day, reading it from start to finish, going through the essays, going through the letters of recommendation, looking at the resume, and then offering my recommendation. Here's the thing about University of Chicago. There is a certain personality of student that we know fit into that environment better than others. So we're also, especially in the interview and the essay, we're just making sure you're going to be happy here. We want to make sure that your college experience is going to be one that you're going to want to be there for the whole 4 years. And just depending on your personality and your interests, we might be that place, we might not. So just intuitively getting a sense of a person's personality and if they're going to be satisfied with their college experience, that is a key thing that we have to do as college admissions officers. So yes, of course, take the best classes you can, do as good as you possibly can. But then there's just the factor of, is your personality suited to this space? Are you going to be happy? At a place like USC for grad school, we're looking at how prepared you were from your undergraduate experience. Did your undergraduate experience give you the tools necessary to be successful at this school? what are you going to contribute to the cohort that's going to make it a vibrant, engaging discussion in the classroom with the professor? Is everyone going to look the same and have the same opinions? Boring. Or is there going to be like a nice diversity to the discussion where people are really learning and gleaning from their classmates? Because now in graduate school, you're almost more like colleagues. You're here to master the profession. So the input from different voices becomes absolutely essential. Homogenous cohort is not what we want. Diversity really is important. So things like showing how your specific experience, your life experience from undergrad really will contribute to a rich, engaging dialogue in the classroom is so important. Mistakes that I saw when I was an interviewer, and this was in person, but this would also apply even if you're doing it virtually, is that students really start doing this thing where they're kind of trying to read from their resume in the interview. So instead of just allowing a natural flow of conversation to just organically happen, they get a little stiff, they get a little closed down, and they just are like in this like I'm trying to impress you mode. And almost like they're trying to reiterate what I already know because I just read your application. So I think it's really important to go into an interview relaxed and ready to just flow with however the conversation flows. So if I start randomly, saying something that I connect to you about as an admissions officer, it's okay to allow the conversation to flow in that direction. You don't have to feel like I'm being judged for everything. Like, we love to see you relax in the collegiate space. We love to see you have a certain comfort level and rapport with us as if we're going to be maybe your professor one day or your peer in a classroom one day. So sometimes I get the sense that students approach this like a job interview. And it's not really the same thing. We're really here to just get a sense of who you are and just once again, make sure you're going to be happy at the school. Not true. We want to see your whole personality. We want to see what you love. We want to see what you're passionate about. We want to see how cool of a person you are, how funny of a person you are, how compassionate of a person you are. And academics don't always tell the whole story. Kind of true. We don't necessarily look for legacy students. We're not like on the hunt. I will say that at some schools, legacy does give you an advantage that sometimes admissions officers can't do anything about. Not true. I think a focused plan of activities that matter to you. We want to see like a progressive, dedicated, focused interest in something you're really excited about. So it doesn't necessarily mean the quantity is going to overtake quality. I don't know what else to say, but I'm reading your application. I'm a human being just trying to make connection with another human being. So it's definitely not being like pushed through a machine. What's going to be different is not what most students think. I think what's going to be different is that the pool for white and Asian students is going to increase. And those students are going to now have to find ways to really stand out from the crowd in that group. The competition for college has just gotten harder. And as that bar increases, it becomes more difficult to set yourself apart. There's only so many extracurriculars you can take before everyone else has taken them. There's only so many summer programs you can do before everyone's done them. So the privileges that you might have to do things economically now become its own problem because everyone's doing the same things. So in my experience as an admissions officer, there was just never a situation where I felt that I needed to give a person extra credit based on their race. A lot of the applicants that I saw coming from African American and Latino populations were very well done and really showcased uh, like a personality and a cultural understanding that was unique and different. So it just stands out naturally from other groups where going to college is more popular and there's going to be more students that are applying who are white and Asian. What happens is there becomes a redundancy and a homogeneity that starts to feel like I'm reading the same application over and over. So what I see is the real ramifications is that white and Asian students are going to have to really think outside of the box as to how they can really distinguish themselves from each other, because there really isn't a real competition between different races as much as students would like to think.